Hey, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. My name is Salvador Briggman, and in today's episode, we are diving deep. We're getting into the nitty-gritty when it comes to anyone who's looking to raise money for a startup company, and you're wondering, number one, how do venture capitalists actually deploy funds? How do you raise money from an angel investor? And more importantly, how do you position your startup to excel, to succeed? How do you use crowdfunding to really power all of that? So in today's incredible episode, I actually spoke with an entrepreneur who has started and run multiple healthcare companies over the past 20 years. This is actually his fifth startup company. And one of the coolest things that we're going to talk about today is really the step-by-step plan that he used in order to raise $3.3 million from angels and venture capitalists. So maybe you're thinking about using crowdfunding when it comes to, powering your company, making sure you get the funding you need to go out there to grow whatever it is you're doing out there online. And crowdfunding is one of the greatest, tools out there in the arsenal to be able to do this. For me, I got my passion and got this started back in 2012 when I started my blog, crowdcrux.com. I also have my podcast as well, Crowdfunding Demystified. We got a YouTube channel, and my goal is to share high quality education, tips, advice, techniques, strategy, and tools so that you can go out there and you can crush it. And that's what I love to do on this podcast. That's what I've been doing for the last couple hundred episodes we've been putting out there. And whether you're looking to use crowdfunding when it comes to Kickstarter, Indiegogo, equity crowdfunding, I think that today's episode is really going to take away the most important lessons that any entrepreneur, any startup person, anyone who's a creator should know about raising capital. And that's one of the most important elements, which is the people who actually give you that money, the investors. So let's get to the crux of today's podcast episode. And we're going to be speaking a lot about, again, equity crowdfunding on this specific episode. If you want to learn more about equity crowdfunding, I actually got a killer book out there called Equity Crowdfunding Explained. And it really goes into the step-by-step process that anyone can use in order to raise capital from the crowd. If you want to learn more about that book, I got a great Audible version out there at crowdcrux.com/equity audio. That link is crowdcrux.com/equity audio. That link will take you there. You can get a free copy of my Audible book. You can listen in the car on the way to work. You can listen while you're doing other stuff. You're doing the dishes. You're cleaning your room. Great way to use this time to really sink your teeth into some high quality education. In addition, I got a free course at crowdcrux.com/equity course. Enter your name and email there, and you'll start getting some lessons from me, sharing with you how to actually crush your campaign when you go out there with one of these equity crowdfunding campaigns. Without further ado, let's dive into today's podcast episode and get to the crux of how this entrepreneur was able to run 5 successful startup companies and also raise $3.3 million from angels and VCs. Hey guys, welcome back to the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Today we're speaking with a guest who has a ton of incredible, useful information when it comes to raising capital for your startup company, and also has started his company of his own, Pivotal Health, that is turning heads in the healthcare industry. They've also done an incredible raise on wefunder as well, and we are lucky enough to be speaking with a member of the team here today. Sal, welcome to the podcast.
Sal, thank you so much for this opportunity. I've been looking forward to talking with you.
I can see we both have good taste in names, my friend.
Yes. Yeah, it's a little bit weird saying Sal, back and forth.
Cool, man. Well, I'd love to, get started, and you can just tell listeners bite-sized, maybe a bit about your background and you, and also we'll get a bit into your company as well.
Sure. So I'm a healthcare entrepreneur. I've been starting, running, growing healthcare companies for the last 20 plus years. And so I've started 3 of my own companies. I ran 2 others. So this current company, Pivotal Health, is my 5th one. And I mean, honestly, this is the one that I'm more excited about than any of the other ones that I've done before.
That's insane, man. Are you crazy? A lot of people, they do one company and they're like, oh my gosh, this is so much work, right? What do you think makes you keep coming back to the drawing board and starting something from scratch here?
A lot of it is the urgency that startup companies need. And I like to do things quickly. I like to move quickly. I like to make decisions quickly. And so it would be difficult for me to work anyplace else other than a company like this, like a company that is kind of getting off the ground. I mean, I think we've all seen as companies get bigger, everything slows down, right? All of the decision making, how quickly people move. There's just no urgency, and that would drive me crazy. So, yeah, some people might say that I'm crazy for doing startup companies over and over again, but that's just how I like to operate.
And what really focused your passion on healthcare? Because I think healthcare is one of those subjects that's quite complicated and, in some ways is a mess with not many good solutions out there, right? What really focused your attention to healthcare? Why do you choose that as your passion?
Yeah, it really wasn't on purpose. It really wasn't. I went to business school at the University of Wisconsin here, and I got connected to two university professors, and I worked with them on our first company, which was a biotech company, and that was the first kind of company that I've ever done, and it happened to be healthcare, and I just have been in healthcare ever since. I mean, one of the things that I really like about healthcare is that at the end of the day, you are doing good. You are taking care of people. You are providing care. You are creating drugs. You are creating medical devices. You are doing good. And there is also a huge opportunity to do well financially, too.
Hmm.
But I mean, you're only going to be creating quality. You're only going to be doing those things if you can provide care, if you can do good for a patients.
I love that. And, you're really making a positive impact, right, in solving challenging problems. And there's so many people out there that really do need, solutions in the market that are going to benefit everyone. Have you always considered yourself to be an entrepreneur? Like, have you ever had a job, or has this kind of been since day one, your pursuit?
Before business school, I had some regular jobs, but since then, everything that I've been involved with has been more entrepreneurial. Has been more high growth. Things like that. That's just kind of what I prefer.
Right. And I think that one of the big things that comes with your path seems to be risk as well. Um, when it comes to that, you deciding to forego like the very normal 9 to 5 paycheck stability, do you feel like that's just kind of ingrained in your blood, or is there another reason why you really tend to gravitate to this, starting companies?
Yeah, I mean, if you're not comfortable with risk, then don't be an entrepreneur. I mean, go hand in hand, right? I mean, it's identifying those risks, trying to figure out how you can mitigate them. There's a lot more that's on me, that's in my hands, so I can see the risks. If I was working for a big Fortune 500 company or something, you can get laid off and you have no idea that layoff is going to even happen, right? So,
Hmm.
when you're running your own company, when you're a founder, when you're a co-founder, you see those things. You know exactly what is happening, and so is it risky? Yes, but I can see all of the risks out there.
I think one of the big things that holds people back from starting companies is this idea that you need capital to get started and not knowing really where to begin, right? When it comes to that. What has your story been like when it comes to capital and learning how to raise money? How did that really grow for you, that experience?
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, I've raised capital for a couple of the different companies that I've done. So kind of going back to my first company, which was a biotech company, we raised millions of dollars. We raised it from venture funds, from angel groups, from family offices, different organizations like that. And then the second company, a medical device company, the same thing, raised from venture funds. angel groups, high net worth individuals, and so so I've done that, and like even Pivotal Health, the same thing. The first $3+ million that we've raised has been from a couple of small venture groups, some family offices, and then a whole bunch of high net worth individuals. And so I've got a lot of experience kind of raising capital on that Reg D side, and this is the first time actually that I'm doing the Reg CF.
And in the Reg D landscape, so for those that aren't familiar, this is raising money privately, from what I understand, and you've been quite successful, and almost it seems like being able to do this systematically, right? Um, from a high level, do you feel like there are any points that really have gone through your mind to make that easier, or where does the process even begin for something like that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've learned a lot of lessons the hard way, right? So you just, pain is the best teacher, and so you make mistakes, and then you learn from them, and then you just kind of get your process better. And so one of the first things that I learned was um, when you're meeting with a venture firm, when you're meeting with an angel group, it rarely happens that you have one meeting and then the term sheet just kind of pops up. That's not what really happens. What typically happens is that you have a couple of meetings, you build that relationship, and then that fund or that group, they track you over time. Okay.
Hmm.
So what that means is that you need to start early. You need to start early. You need to establish those relationships. You need to keep those folks updated on your progress. You need to let them know how things are going, so that when it is time for you to kind of get very active on that capital raise, those prospects, those contacts are already warmed up. So they know who you are. There's a relationship there. There is credibility. They've seen the progress. Then you could actually do a meeting, and then a term sheet could happen quickly. But if people kind of go into it with the expectation that, oh, I'm going to meet with this, venture fund, and then a term sheet's going to happen, that's not how it typically happens. So you need to move early.
Making sure you're developing relationships, like you said, and giving people an idea, right? And to warm up even to the idea of investing sounds like is pretty important, right? In thinking about this, I think a lot of people even struggle with like getting that first meeting, right? Is this something where you're just firing off emails or LinkedIn posts, or are you getting some kind of an introduction or cold calling? Like, how do you get that first meeting, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, it's from a variety of ways. I mean, the absolute best way is some warm introduction. And, so you need to try to network to someone that knows people at that fund, at that firm, at that group, and then they could make that warm introduction, so that, again, it kind of brings you in with some credibility. And, that's kind of the first test. Like, if you don't have a network that's good enough, if you can't develop your network to be able to get connected to the people at that organization, then do you really have the network to even do a company, right? So that's kind of
Right.
the first test, right? Number one. Now, with that said, I have sent out many cold emails, and they usually don't work, but there have been quite a few times over the last 20 years that a cold email has worked. And okay, so when have they worked? Okay, they've worked when you're targeting an investor that you've done the research on, that number one is actively looking for deals, and number two, they are very active in the space that you are working in. Okay,
Hmm.
so like, for example, like, okay, who actually has capital, right? So the way that the typical venture fund works is that it's a 10-year fund, but they're usually only deploying in the first 1 to 3 years. Okay, sometimes the first two years only. So if you're talking to a fund that is on year 4 or year 5 and they haven't raised another fund, chances are they're not doing new deals. Okay,
Hmm.
so you need to figure out who actually has capital. Okay, number
Hmm.
one. And then you need to be You need to do research to figure out, okay, are they interested in what I'm doing? And it's not just like, okay, so we're a healthcare company. I need to find a healthcare VC. That's not good enough because healthcare is so huge, right? So is this fund or is this group, are they interested in software or are they interested in services? And so you need to get as narrow and as specific as you possibly can. And then if you could do that, and if you could kind of craft a short, punchy email that's going to kind of catch their attention, then
Right.
then you could do that cold outreach, and it would work.
It's kind of an interesting way to think about it because you're almost putting yourself in someone else's shoes, right? And really getting an idea of what type of like business model would they want to invest in and who would they want to partner with, like those kinds of questions. I think so often we just think like, what do I want, right? Versus something that's going to be a good deal for you and also for them.
Exactly right. I mean, you could tell by the prior deals that this organization has done. You can see what that partner's background is. Maybe they've worked at a company that is kind of like what you're doing, so they would get it, right? So it's just kind of looking at all those different pieces to kind of figure out, okay, who should I target?
The first time, if you think back in your memory, it's like the first time you had someone write a check to invest in your company. What did that feel like? Like what was going through your mind at that point?
It's exciting. It's a little bit scary too. I mean, it's exciting because there's a lot of work that kind of goes into the whole thing, right? And so when you finally get that first round done, that first process done, it feels great. It feels great for about a day, and then you realize, oh, now I need to do what I said that I was going to do. And so it also comes with expectations, and that's something that I've always taken very seriously. If you raise capital, the expectation is that you will do everything that you possibly can to make that company work. Now, it doesn't always, right? And the investors get that, but you can't just quit because there's a problem or something. You need to work through the problems. There's always going to be problems. And so kind of raising money from an outsider, from someone else, it puts that pressure on you. It kind of gives you a little bit of anxiety, but it's kind of like a good anxiety in that it helps you stay focused.
So in some ways, it kind of motivates you, right? In that now it's not just you on the line, but you also have to get a return, and you have people who are expecting updates, right? So you need to make sure you're careful with your decisions and you're focusing your energy, right?
Exactly. I mean, at the end of the day, that's why someone is, writing you a check. They are expecting a return.
So one question I did have, and I appreciate you so much for being candid and honest because a lot of people, I feel like this is kind of like a black box, right? It's very mysterious how all of this works. I think when we're coming to this idea of like funding a company, someone's like, well, I'd love to have just like millions of dollars. Like, why would I put a cap on this? How do you really figure out what is appropriate to raise for this round, this first round you're speaking of?
Yeah, I mean, so you need to create an operational plan, and you need to have a budget with that, right? And you need to figure out, okay, what is the milestone that we're going to be going after, that we're going to try to get, that's going to increase the company's valuation, right? That's always the key. So you want to raise enough to kind of get to that point. Now, with that said, everything takes longer than you think, right? There's I think it's called Hofstadter's law or something. And it's like, it always takes longer than you expect, even when you take into account Hofstadter's law, right? Mm. So if you do this operational plan to reach, milestone A, and if you figure out, okay, well, if we get $500,000, we can, hit that. Don't just raise $500,000. Raise at least twice that. Okay, at least, because everything takes twice as long. And again, it's not always that you're not going to move with the urgency. It's just everything that happens around you. They don't move with the same urgency that you have, right? No one cares about you more than you. Everyone else has their own things, right? So you always want to raise at least double of what you think that it's going to take for you to get to that next milestone.
If you're worried about the fulfillment and shipping part of your Kickstarter campaign when it comes to getting out all those perks and rewards to your backers, rest assured I've put together a complete Kickstarter fulfillment and shipping checklist for you, and it's free. This is sponsored by the folks at Fulfillrite, and they thought that you should have this checklist as part of your arsenal going into a crowdfunding campaign. If you want to get instant access to this checklist and it's free, you can go to fulfillrite.com/checklist. Again, that is fulfillrite.com/checklist, fulfillrite.com/checklist. Just go to that link and you can download it immediately. So thinking about this, just to put this into context, I mean, Pivotal Health, you guys have been crushing it with your most recent campaign. And from what I understand as well, your operations have been going very well. You know, you raised capital from VCs and angel investors. What are one or two of the milestones you've been able to hit so far when it comes to your company here?
Yeah, so I mean, the first milestone was kind of getting this tech platform built, and so we're leveraging tech to do these clinician house calls, and so we're actually sending providers, Pivotal Health providers, to people's homes, apartments, dorm rooms, offices, job sites, wherever, to provide urgent care and to provide family practice, visits. And so we created this tech platform that everything around the visit has been automated. So that first milestone for us was like, okay, can we get this platform working? Can we get it off the ground so that people can schedule with the Pivotal Health app? So they can pay with the app. And so then on the provider side, can we automate a great deal of the provider charting and a lot of those back office things to kind of make life easier for the providers? And so that's what we're really focused on, is just making healthcare easier for the consumer and for our providers. So that first milestone was getting that tech platform working. And then we started seeing patients here in the Madison area, started to really kind of take off. And then the next milestone was, okay, can we expand to a different metro area? And, does the platform scale? And we're able to do that as well. We're now in essentially 3, metro areas, and the platform scales really well. We can add more metro areas without adding admin.
I was going to say, I mean, that's insane to think that you're going to have a good healthcare experience, right? So you guys are providing that. And, I was looking through this, and it seems like this is also something where you're offering this, from what I understand, through employers, right? There's an employer piece of this as well.
Yeah, we have 2 business models. One is direct to employer. And so this is where the employer pays us a per employee per month fee. And then their employees can then schedule visits with us for $25. And so we've been able to sign up a couple of thousand employees at close to 20 employers. And so then this is something, again, that people are just blown away. They're like, wait, you're going to have the provider come to me at a time that I pick? We're like, yep, that's how it works. And at first, there is some skepticism. People are not sure. They're used to.
I would be totally skeptical. Yeah.
Right. And then they see it and they're like, oh yeah, this is awesome. And so, once people use us, and they use us again and again and again.
That was one question I was going to ask you, is like, what has been the transformation, or what's the experience like from someone having like the traditional approach versus now working with Pivotal Health? Have you had any stories or people saying what that experience is like?
Yeah, so it's interesting. The older the person, the more skeptical that they are, right? And so we've actually gotten a lot of traction with university kids. And if you think about it, that makes a lot of sense, because the younger the person is, they're more used to doing things with their phone, right? They order a car with Uber, they order food with DoorDash or Uber Eats. They order groceries with Instacart or something, right? Whatever, everything is done with the phone. And so when they get to college and they realize, oh, wait a second, I'm not feeling well, I need to get some healthcare. And they're like, wait, I can't just do this with my phone. And so then they see Pivotal and they're like, oh yeah, I could do this with my phone. I can text with the provider. This is how I want healthcare. And so we've been able to really kind of tap into that. And so our customer acquisition cost for those university kids has been practically zero.
Mm.
Because another great thing about universities is that things go viral quickly, both
Yeah.
sicknesses and also things like this. And so we've been able to kind of really go viral at the University of Wisconsin, and we don't spend a penny on customer acquisition for that population.
That's incredible, and I do think there's a massive market out there, people who recognize exactly what you said, and would love to have that level of convenience, right, when it comes to that. In thinking about this, one of the questions I had is, you're going out there and you're launching these multiple startups. I think a lot of the times people can, absorb what you've shared so far, but where they might struggle is, okay, so like, am I going after, one VC to get this funded? Is this like, 100 angels all investing like, 10,000? How do you really think about like breaking down a raise into like more of a tangible approach there?
Yeah, that's a great question. Today capital raising is significantly harder than it was just a couple of years ago, right? And so you really can't close the door on anything. So, for example, over the last couple of years, we've been asked a lot by our patients, "Oh, this is awesome. How can I invest? How can I participate? Is there any way that I can help you guys?" And so, and these are people that are typically not accredited, and so they couldn't come in with a check for 25,000 or 50,000, and that was really the main driver with us to kind of launch this crowdfunding round, is to kind of let our patients, let the friends of the company who really understand the value of what we're bringing, let them participate, right?
Hmm.
But as far as like VCs and like angels, it is incredibly difficult. So you really can't close the door on any one of those. You need to kind of keep the conversations going across the board. Talk with angels, talk with family offices, talk with venture funds. Maybe that venture fund is not looking to invest in you now, but they might with your next round, right?
Hmm.
But what I've also seen is the best capital is revenue, right? Sales. So
Mm.
don't ever take your eye off of that, because if you can increase sales, if you can increase your capital that way, then you'll have people knocking on your door that want to put money into you. So always keep your eye on the prize. Revenue has to be your top priority. And then the capital raising, something that you do in addition to that.
I do have a couple more questions on pivotal health, but while we're on the topic, one other quick one I had just on this idea of, working with investors. There's so many like horror stories out there, right? Like The Social Network and all these pop culture movies of like VCs taking advantage of you, or, investors turning out to be a nightmare. Do you have any thoughts on like who you should and should not accept capital from, or any kind of guidance on that point?
Yeah, and I could kind of think back to a situation that I had a couple of companies ago, where we we got a term sheet from an investor, and it was a small venture fund, and we were really excited. We had put in a lot of work into raising the round. The venture fund did their due diligence on us, and we got the term sheet, and then we're working towards kind of getting the round closed, working on the final deal documents and things. And then, like on the last day, right before we're about to close, the fund comes back to us, and they said that they wanted to change a couple of the key terms. And we were like, well, why? I mean, this deal is done. Everything was good. We thought everything was fine.
Mm.
And they made up something about whatever that it was. But at that point, we really needed to get the round closed, right? We had kind of put all of our eggs into that one basket. We were just about to close, and they kind of pulled the rug out from under us. And so we ended up like negotiating something with them, but it was a curveball.
Hmm.
And the timing of it was pretty low, frankly. I mean, and then it turns out afterwards, I talked to another entrepreneur that had worked with them as well. The fund did the exact same thing with them.
Mm.
So this is how they would operate, you know? And that's just, I mean, that's not good business. You know what I
Yeah, it
mean?
sounds almost like underhand, right?
Right. So, so the lesson that I got from that is before you do a deal, when the venture fund is doing due diligence on you, be sure to do due diligence on them. And the way that I recommend people doing that is identify some of their companies that have failed, right? Every venture fund has that. Identify a couple of the companies that have failed, network yourself to the CEO of those companies or the person that was the CEO at that time and talk with them and say, hey, how was it to work with venture fund X or angel group X? Ask them, because when everything's great and the company exits and sells for $500 million, then a lot of the problems get kind of washed over, right?
Hmm.
At the end of the day,
Hmm.
everyone kind of makes money and everything's good. But you really see how an angel group is when there are problems.
Mm.
And so that really is the best. Those are the best people to talk to figure out if you want to work with that group or not.
Well said. Well said. And I appreciate you sharing that. And I think that's something we definitely have to be mindful of, right? As founders and entrepreneurs. You've had such a incredible career here. I mean, you've been doing this for 2 decades, and from what I understand, you've also had a successful exit, right? Is that also true?
Yeah, I mean, it was, it's, I mean, I'm still working. So the exit, it was okay. I was running a pharmacy business, and that was not a company that I had actually started myself. I was actually brought in to be the COO, and over 5 years, grew the company quite a bit, and we ended up selling. The retail pharmacies that we owned to one of the large retail pharmacy chains. And then we ended up selling the long-term care pharmacy that we owned to one of the big long-term care pharmacy companies. And so, just really learned a lot about how to scale a healthcare operation, how to scale a provider organization, things like that, how to deal with insurance companies. And then kind of going through that exit with those two different companies, it was great to see how these two companies, one is a Fortune 100 company, kind of seeing how their business development and how their M&A process was, and kind
Hmm.
of seeing what does a big company look for, and kind of how do they think, and kind of how do you have to have a champion at these companies, and how do you need to
Hmm.
kind of help that champion, with your deal, so it
Right.
was, yeah, it's really, learned a lot.
Well, yeah, congratulations on that. And I think that for someone who's listening, being an entrepreneur is quite a risky game. And I think one great way to kind of get experience is even to invest in startups, and you can watch, right, as this other entrepreneur is really leading the charge, and you're also getting to experience that. So, for people that are thinking of maybe potentially investing in this new raise that you're doing here with Pivotal Health, what's one or two big things you'd really want to communicate with them when it comes to your wefunder campaign here?
Sure. The first thing that I'd like to, the point that I'd like to make is that, this is proven. I mean, we've proven the demand for this. I mean, if you look at all of our Google reviews, they're off the charts. All of our patients absolutely love it. And we've also identified this population with the university students where we have essentially zero or very low customer acquisition cost. And that's so critical with any company. Can you identify a population to sell to that you don't need to really convince? And so with the university students, we've really identified that. And so our plan of attack is to expand Pivotal to more university metro areas. And so we're looking at university towns that have at least 500,000 people, that have a university of at least 20 to 30,000 kids, because we're very confident that we could land in that metro with just a couple of providers, and that we can very quickly convince these university students to use us. And then as we kind of get that engine going, we could then take the longer time that it takes to kind of sell to the rest of the population. But kind of having that beachhead patient population that we know that we're so confident is going to love what we do is worth so much.
Mhm.
So, that's kind of like the first thing. And the second thing I'd like to say is our platform is built. We know that it scales. We have scaled it to multiple metro areas. So at this point, it's just getting the additional capital to kind of help us expand to these metro areas. So there's no tech risk. We're not developing something new or have to win a Nobel Prize or something. Like the platform's built. We're ready to go. My team has learned so much kind of doing this with these couple of metros that we've already done this in. We're very confident we could very cost effectively expand this.
What I like about what you're doing is you're also kind of leaning into a trend, right? Which is the fact that so many healthcare systems, clinics, like they're all shutting down, and you guys are running an operation where you have minimal capital investment, it sounds like, and you're sending someone out there to be able to provide this care versus what happens when all these clinics shut down, there's going to be a huge gap, right, in the market when it comes to that.
Yeah, and that's one of the biggest problems that we have in healthcare is the inefficiency of the large healthcare systems. They've got today they've got twice as many admin people as they do clinicians. It's just ridiculous.
Sounds like government operations.
Yeah, in some ways worse. And it's just so inefficient. And so we're the opposite. The biggest part of the company are the providers. We only have a couple of admin people because we're able to kind of build this platform from scratch, leveraging tech in smart ways so that we don't need to have a big admin team, And so as we expand to multiple metros, we need to hire a couple of providers in each of those metros, but I literally don't need to add any more admin people.
The other thing that really stood out to me in you just describing the service is this idea you could even like text with someone or have communications. My man, I think that would cut down on so many issues, right? Because so much of it is like you're Googling on WebMD and you don't know if this is an issue or not, right? Just being able to have like some light communication could really help things, I think.
Yeah, and that's just kind of bringing healthcare to where the patient wants to be. People text, right? Even my 75-year-old father texts me, now. And so, that's where people want to be. And so just kind of doing those common sense things of like, okay, yeah, we will text with you. You can ask your provider questions via text. People love it, especially our younger patients. And it's not about us. It's about them, right? How can we make the healthcare experience easier for the patient?
Well said. Well said. Where can people go to learn more about Pivotal Health, and where can they also go to check out this regulation crowdfunding campaign that you're running?
Yeah, so our website is pivotalhealth.care. So pivotalhealth.care. And our crowdfunding round is on wefunder. So if you just search for Pivotal Health on wefunder, we will come up.
Awesome. I'll be sure to link those in the show notes for everyone. And my final question for you, and we can end on this note, we can either end with a quote that you like. We could end with a word of encouragement for other creators and entrepreneurs in the audience, or a final tip that you'd like to leave people with, and we can end on that note.
Yeah, I think I'd like to end on the tip. And I think, something that I've learned here doing this crowdfunding is that one of the ancillary benefits of it is that it really helps with your sales. That's something that we are seeing because we've been trying to pitch the crowdfunding to an audience that we believe would use Pivotal Health. And so while trying to pitch that, they end up using us as a patient. And so this is something that I think everyone that kind of goes into this crowdfunding process should, keep in mind, and that is that there are these ancillary benefits of it, not just raising capital, but of also it really helps you focus on who you want to sell to, and it can really juice up sales.
Well said. Thank you so much for coming on the podcast. Really appreciate it, and looking forward to seeing your service come to an area near me at some point.
Great, Sal. Thank you so much. I really appreciate this.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Crowdfunding Demystified podcast. Again, my name is Salvador Briggman. First of all, if you did enjoy today's episode, if you think this was valuable nuggets of crowdfunding gold, take a second to rate and review this podcast on iTunes. If you're listening on Spotify, it would mean so much to me if you just took a minute of your time to really rate and review that positively so other people know this is worth their time. I learned so much in today's podcast episode, and you as a fly in the wall, I hope you took away tons of actionable information because, as we know, knowledge is only potential power. You got to put that knowledge to use. You really got to learn and then apply it, and that's really when it becomes a way that you can supercharge your startup, your business, your creative endeavor. You really got to put that education to use. And speaking of that, no, not only did I learn a lot about venture capital, angel investors, equity crowdfunding on this episode, but if you feel like at the end that you're still kind of a little bit foggy, if there are a couple of pieces of the puzzle that are just not clicking for you yet, and you want to use crowdfunding in your business, if you wanted to really get to that next stage in your life when it comes to growing your company, launching a new project, building a crowd, and having people singing your praises, go and take a second to learn more about my individual one-on-one coaching call option. All you got to do is go to the link I'm about to mention, and you can actually book an intensive one-on-one coaching call with me. And we can use that to not only set the strong foundation when it comes to your launch and your campaign, but you go through everything that you've been doing up until this point and make sure that you're using the right tactics, strategy, techniques, and tools to absolutely crush it when you go live with your crowdfunding campaigns. If you want to book an individual one-on-one coaching call with me, go to this link I'm about to mention at crowdcrux.com/coaching. That link is crowdcrux.com/coaching. crowdcrux.com/coaching will take you there. Do it now. Don't hesitate. Whether you're in the early stages of this and you're just in the idea stage, or you're further along, got a prototype, or you're gearing up to a launch in a week from now, I'm telling you that one minor course correction can have a profound impact on your success. So go to that link. And regardless, thank you so much for tuning in, man. My name, again, is Salvador Briggman. We got a killer episode next week, so make sure that you also tune in. And for those of you that have been following along, go out there, take some action, and move towards your goals this upcoming week. Thank you so much. Again, my name is Sal, and I'll see you next time.